I've done a lot of videos on gaslighting, and oftentimes I focus on the gaslighter, but I don't want to do that today. Today, I want to focus on what happens to your personality as a result of the gaslighting. Because to me, gaslighting, especially by a covert narcissist, is often like emotional carbon monoxide. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't detect it, and yet it is slowly destroying you from the inside out. So first, we're going to talk about 3 characteristics in your personality that make you susceptible to covert gaslighting. Then we're going to talk about how your personality begins to change as a result of the gaslighting. And last but not least, I'm going to give you some tips to help you to start getting back to you. So let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a trauma-informed coach. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner. I'm also the founder of the School of Transformation, where I meet live every week on Zoom with survivors of narcissistic abuse, childhood trauma, and or emotional trauma. So if my videos resonate with you and you're looking for a more interactive healing resource, make sure you come check out our live weekly meetings. So one characteristic that can make someone susceptible to gaslighting is when you put an overemphasis on the perspective of others compared to your own. Now, this often comes from a lack of self-trust, a lack of feeling confident in your own perspective. Now, tied into that inability to trust self is an inability to validate from within. So that's a characteristic that makes you very susceptible to gaslighting and to covert narcissistic abuse. And I just want to state that if you struggle with this, it's not because you are weak. Usually this is the result of having either a narcissistic parent or an emotionally immature parent. And this is the consequence of that, of being raised in an environment where maybe you were not allowed to have your own voice, or you were not allowed to have your own feelings. In other words, people that are able to validate from within had good enough parenting or were mirrored properly, and they were allowed to be themselves. And sadly, narcissists, a lot of the tactics that they use, the reason they're effective is because they look for people with unhealed childhood trauma. And so speaking about unhealed childhood trauma, that leads me into the second characteristic that makes somebody susceptible to covert gaslighting and or covert narcissistic abuse. And that's feeling responsible for the reactions or emotions of others. And so, for example, let's say somebody else is upset or angry. You automatically think that somehow it's your fault and that you have to do, say, or be anything to help that person to feel better, as if it's your responsibility. And this goes back to childhood trauma because this is actually the fawn trauma response. If you're a child growing up with narcissistic parents or with a chaotic family environment that doesn't feel safe, right? A child can't fight, a child can't run away and flee. So oftentimes a child will go into a fawn trauma response. Not that the child is choosing, it's your nervous system that's choosing it. But the fawn trauma response is I'm going to stifle how I really feel or what I need, and I'm going to show up and I'm going to socially engage in a way that makes you happy to the caregivers, because if you're happy, then I'm safe and connected. And if we grew up in that environment, then the fawn trauma response, it's like it's hardwired into our personality. And it's exactly what narcissists look for in their victims. Someone that's willing to override their own perceptions, their own needs for the needs of the narcissist. And when you're doing it, you're often doing it unconsciously. So please make sure that you're not giving yourself shame or blaming yourself for that. Now, the third characteristic I'm going to mention that makes you susceptible to covert narcissistic gaslighting is projecting your good qualities onto the narcissist. Now, I know often when we talk about projection, we talk about how narcissists project onto their victims, but we can also project onto the narcissist accidentally. For example, sometimes when a narcissist is gaslighting, they will criticize you, right? And then they will shift it around when you start calling them out for criticizing you, and they'll tell you that they're only saying it for your own good. They're trying to help you. And the words sound nice. So what might happen is, because when somebody's saying something like that and they're saying, no, I'm really just saying this because I really want to help you, because that's what we would do, right? We wouldn't lie and manipulate on purpose. So we assume that when the person is saying that they're like us. They're not going to do that. We're assuming that when they say, I'm doing this for your own good, that they actually mean it. And this characteristic can happen even if you don't have childhood trauma, because it's really hard to wrap your mind around the fact that somebody that says they love you and that wants to be in a relationship with you would intentionally be trying to hurt you. So as a result, we take what they say at face value because, again, it's really hard to believe, in the beginning at least, that somebody's actually purposely doing all of these weird mind games with the thought of harming you. So those were some characteristics that make you susceptible. Let's now focus on what happens to your personality as you're in a relationship with somebody that is actively gaslighting you. As you probably already know, narcissists hate to see you happy. And so they start seeing the things in your life that make you happy, and they start criticizing you when you're doing them. Or if they're not actively, overtly criticizing you, they're just in this really negative energy when you're doing things that you love. Now, the gaslighting comes in when you start noticing that and you start saying something like, I feel like when I do this thing that I love, you're angry, or you're always upset with me when I'm spending time doing something that I love. And at that moment, they'll gaslight you by saying, that's not true. You're imagining that. You're being too sensitive. And that's so subtle, right? So what will happen is the next time we go to do the thing that we love, the narcissist doesn't say anything, but they give that negative energy, and our nervous system starts feeling the discomfort. Now remember, our nervous system is detecting their negative energy, and it starts associating their negative energy with what you're doing that you love, and it starts making a conclusion that whatever you're doing is not safe. And so one way that a person's personality is changed drastically as a result of gaslighting and covert manipulation is that they begin amputating things that make them them, because unconsciously their nervous system is detecting that it's making the other person unhappy. And so as the relationship goes on, that person does less and less what they used to do. They spend less and less time with people that they used to spend time with. And little by little, the time that they were given to themselves and doing the things they enjoy, the passions that they have, gets taken up in revolving around the other person. Something else that becomes apparent in the personality of somebody that is being gaslit is their incessant need to convince someone else of their truth. Almost like an obsession, almost like they're unable, or they lose the ability to notice that two people can have two opposing thoughts and recognize that that person's allowed to think that way and they're still allowed to hold on to their truth. They lose that ability. And so what you'll find is in the relationship with the narcissist, you are constantly trying to prove to the narcissist your truth and your reality. And narcissists are always having circular arguments. So right when you get to the point where you're making a point, right, they start all over again from the beginning. And because you're unable to recognize that that's their perspective, I don't like it, but they're allowed to have it, because you lost that ability due to all of the gaslighting, because the narcissist made you feel like you had to see things their way all the time, you keep on in those circular arguments, which drain you of energy. You may fall into this habit of thinking, if I can just get through to the narcissist, if I can just convince them, if I can just say it the right way, they will see my reality, they will validate it, and then I will feel comfortable. And sadly, when we're thinking like that, we're trying harder and harder. We're yanking our personality inside out, and the narcissist is like a jockey on a horse dangling the carrot, watching you chase something that they're constantly putting just outside of your reach. And when your personality is at this stage, it's so easy to think that, okay, well, it must be me. I must be completely messed up, and we can fall into a state of helplessness. And because we feel helpless, we wind up clinging to the very person that's causing all the damage. Narcissists love to use gaslighting as a hurt and rescue mission. They hurt you with their gaslighting. Then when you're completely overworked and you're completely exasperated, they make themselves the solution to the problem. They make you feel like they're with you and they're helping you. Again, this is covert narcissism. And this leads me to the next thing that you'll notice about your personality. At some point, you'll start to notice that you've lost a complete felt sense of safety. You don't feel safe with the narcissist. You don't know why though, because it's very confusing. You think it's you, right? You don't feel safe with others, especially because narcissists love to surround you with flying monkeys. Nobody that's really seeing the covert abuse that's taking place. And this is where their gaslighting starts affecting other people's perception of you. Because before any event, they will do or say something very hurtful, but then they'll deny ever saying it, right? Right before you go into whatever event you're going into. But it's already activated your nervous system. So you enter being around people from this place of discomfort, unhappiness, being emotionally triggered, and they're just happy as can be, pretending that nothing happened right before the event, right? The argument never happened, the criticism never happened. They're happy. You're the one with a problem because you're not happy. And they start setting you up so that this happens over and over in front of people, so that people can also begin to confirm the reality that there's something wrong with you and that the narcissist is amazing. And the last thing I'm going to mention is that at this point, you become extremely triggered around other people. People that say, but the narcissist loves you. They care so much about you. And you fling into an emotional reaction. And that's exactly what the narcissist wants you to do. They're setting you up to have these reactions, again, to feed the belief there's something wrong with you so that they can maintain control over you. At this point, what usually happens is you feel like your whole world has been pulled out, like the rug has been pulled out from beneath you. You don't know how to get your footing. And sadly, sometimes it's not until we hit rock bottom, where we come face to face with what has happened and how this has changed us and what we've lost and what has been turned against us. When we hit that rock bottom, that we finally wake up and realize that we are stuck in a web of manipulation and gaslighting. Now, the narcissist would love to keep you in the state of confusion and high reactivity. They would love for you to stay in that state. So I want to give you some tips if you're dealing with narcissists right now in what can help you to break out of the pattern that the narcissist wants to keep you in, this unhealthy pattern, so that you can start creating agency from within. Tip number 1 is about learning how to break out of the fawn trauma response. This is your unhealed trauma from the past that the narcissist has got their hooks into. As you learn how to heal your past trauma, you can then show up as the adult you are today to handle the difficulties in the relationship that you're in at the moment. If you don't heal your past trauma and learn how to break out of the fawn trauma response, then your child or your wounded inner child is the one that is showing up in the relationship, that is getting activated, that is getting triggered, and we can't heal from that place. As a quick reminder, that's exactly what we do in the School of Transformation. We work with our nervous system, with our trauma responses, so that we can heal from the past and deal with life's challenges as the adult we are today. So if my videos resonate with you, but you're still struggling, come join our live weekly Zoom meetings. Now, if you're not into healing with a group and you prefer something more one-on-one, then I really want to recommend 2 modalities that are amazing. One of them is somatic experiencing. Obviously, I'm partial as a somatic experiencing practitioner, but the reason that this is so helpful is that rather than just talking about what's happening, you're actually working with your nervous system in a session. So that's amazing. And then the other modality that I would encourage you to explore is EMDR. The second tip that I want to give you as you start taking your agency back, I want to encourage you to learn how to increase your capacity to be in the discomfort of others. In other words, as you're healing and getting your agency back, it will make the narcissist worse. So first, prepare for that. I think sometimes we think that, well, I'm doing something that's helpful, that's helping me to be healthier, so therefore it's going to result in a positive in a relationship. Well, yes, if you're dealing with somebody that's healthy. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, a covert narcissist, your healthy behaviors unsettle them, make them angry because they like the chaos that you guys have been living in. They don't want that to change. So for you to change and start healing, you have to increase your ability to stay you, to be you, despite their discomfort and their anger and their unhappiness with your personal growth. And the third tip that I want to give you is to start reconnecting or making connections with people that can support you. And again, that's where a group support is helpful. However, you can also get back in touch with people maybe in your life that you knew in the past that you stopped communicating with because of the narcissist. Usually, if a narcissist wants you to stop being close to a person, it's because they were healthy and good for you. So rekindling some old relationships or starting to find connections with people that can support you is invaluable. 2 ways that I did that personally and that I found it super helpful was a friend of mine from way before I was in a relationship with a narcissist got in touch with me. And it was so soothing to talk to somebody that knew me before I lost myself, before I became this tomb of a person, before I became this shadow of my former self. And being able to talk to somebody that knew me allowed me to start sharing things that I had been trained by the narcissist to not share. And it started helping me to regain control of my reality. The other thing that I did was I joined a support group. And in that support group, just hearing other people's stories and being able to share mine without somebody telling me, no, that's not true, or you're being too sensitive, or that person's amazing, it's you, it's your fault because look at you, they're fine, they're happy, you're not. Having people listen to my story and validate it. Again, if it's just you against the narcissist, your reality against their reality, they're an expert manipulator. It's so hard to not get sucked into trying to defend yourself and getting sucked back into their habits that they want to keep you in, which is the spinning, the circular arguments, and the lack of agency. But when you have other people that believe in you, that give you space to voice your reality, that support you, that see you, it's so much more helpful. So I hope these tips help. And again, I'm available live weekly on Zoom in the School of Transformation if you want to come join myself and an amazingly beautiful international group of survivors of emotional trauma.